Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It is Tuesday, May 28th, 2019, getting into the week here, day after Memorial Day, and we have got lots to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Sam is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. So let's get right on into it. I don't know what it is about holidays like Memorial Day or Labor Day where people feel that they can go out and have a lot of alcohol and drive around town. We saw a lot of accidents here on Oahu over the weekend here. Apparently over in Chicago, at least 32 people were shot, 5 fatally, over the Memorial Day weekend, including 5 who were shot in a single incident on the near west side. So I don't know what's going on here, but that's really not a good way to celebrate Memorial Day here. Joe Biden apparently was missing in action Memorial Day. He didn't take part in any of the events honoring America's fallen soldiers. And, considering that he's, considered the top 2020 Democrat, he didn't schedule any events. And apparently his last campaign event was in Philadelphia last Saturday. So a lot of people are scratching their heads about that one. Where was Joe about that one? Now, if you're in Ohio and Indiana, keep an eye out that window. There have been major tornadoes there. 5 million people are without power. And apparently this line of tornadoes crossed Indiana and Ohio last night, so close together that one crossed through the path of another. And towns outside of Dayton, Ohio were the hardest hit. The damage is described as catastrophic. And apparently a large and dangerous tornado hit near Trotwood, Ohio, 8 miles northwest of Dayton. Several apartment buildings were damaged or destroyed. So in Indiana, at least 75 homes were damaged in Pendleton and the nearby community of Huntsville and Madison County. Emergency management spokesman Todd Harrison, no serious injuries reported in the area or in other areas of the state. So it's a rowdy weather time here, so keep your eyes outside those windows. And Fox News right now is even showing Arkansas and Oklahoma brace for historic flooding. Boy, what a rough time. You'd almost think that somebody up there doesn't really like the United States, possibly because of all the warmongering that we're doing on other countries. Over the weekend, the European Union had their elections, and the elections were, as many people expected, to be a dramatic upheaval. It's being described as the most dramatic upheaval in European politics in 40 years, meaning it's the most dramatic upheaval since the first European Parliament elections 40 years ago. And there was a surge of support for the far right, for the nationalists, for the populists, also for the Greens, and it's really shaken a lot of people up. And Europe's traditional powerhouses, supporters of mainstream parties, got a bruising defeat, and they're trying to consider what their future is going to be. Now, more than 400 million Europeans in 28 member states, including Brexiting Britain, have been asked to cast a vote for a renewed 5-year term for the European Union's only directly elected body, the European Parliament. Remember, the European Council is not elected. So over in Germany, their governing parties were dealt their worst results for 70 years, with Chancellor Angela Merkel's center-right Union bloc taking just 28% of the vote, down from 35% 5 years ago, and their Social Democrat allies receiving just 15%, down from 27% in 2014. In France, Macron has faced calls to dissolve parliament after the far right stormed to victory in the European Parliament elections. The results did not trigger a national crisis, a government spokesman said, and Prime Minister Edouard Philippe has all the confidence of the president, blah, 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 blah. So this was clearly a day of reckoning between pro-European and anti-European forces, between those who want greater integration and those who want to go back to being sovereign nation states. And the election results tell the story of a much more fragmented European Union, where mainstream parties on both the left and the right are losing the confidence of voters, a trend that reflects European national politics over the last few years. Nationalist parties took home impressive results in Italy, France, Belgium, Hungary, and Poland. The result was mixed for nationalists in other countries. Okay, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. We're talking about the European election results over the weekend here. And basically, commentators are saying that the EU election results show people are fed up with this fake democracy that has ruled the EU for these many years. And these anti-establishment forces had major gains in the EU elections because voters are tired of parties refusing to challenge Brussels. So the Eurosceptic parties made considerable gains in the elections, leaving the bloc's establishment parties battered and searching for answers. So it was a major upset, which was interesting because over the weekend, the corporate media, especially the European media, was saying, oh, it's going to be, the traditional parties are going to win. They're going to do really good. Then as it got later in the day, well, yeah, the anti-establishment parties are, they're doing a little bit better. But when the votes were all counted, the nationalists did score a major, major victory. Okay, Nigel Farage is very happy today. He's warning that he will obliterate the Tories as leadership rivals Boris Johnson and Michael Gove scramble over Brexit. The 6-week-old Brexit Party won 29 MEP seats. That is a stunning, stunning victory for Nigel Farage here. And getting back over to France, French President Emmanuel Macron suffered a defeat to Marine Le Pen's nationalist movement in Sunday's European parliamentary elections. Macron's Republic on the Move had 21.9% of the vote, compared with 24.1% for the anti-European National Rally, with 90% of the ballots counted. The Greens rose to third place with 13.1%. The Conservative Republicans got 8%, Socialists 6.4%. In the last EU vote in 2014, Le Pen beat the Conservatives by 4 percentage points, with Macron's socialist predecessor, Francois Hollande, trailing in third. So this is a setback for Macron in his battle for legitimacy as he tries to persuade the rest of the European Union to pursue tighter integration. clearly the results of this election, the European people do not want tighter integration. They want their freedom. They want to go back to being sovereign nations. Now, Marine Le Pen, the leader of the National Rally Party in France, is calling on Macron to resign the presidency and said he is not honest or bold enough to recognize his worldview has been defeated. Now, Marine Le Pen noted that David Cameron stepped down as prime minister when the British people voted to leave the EU back in 2016. And in 2019, Le Pen noted Prime Minister Theresa May announced her plans to resign after the Brexit Party defeated her party and all others in the UK's European Parliament elections. So this is a seismic shift in the politics of Europe. So, article coming out of The Guardian, the European Union elections signal troubled times, and Le Monde is saying the extreme right comes first in France, Italy, and the UK. Le Figaro says Macron sets up duel with Le Pen after the president's group won 22.5% compared with Le Pen's 23.5% in France. It was a narrow defeat for Macron, but it was still a defeat. Süddeutsche Zeitung leads its e-paper with a headline, Greens are second biggest party for the first time in Germany, while looking at the losses for the center-right CDU and the socialist SPDs. So these parties are facing troubled times. Yes, they are. Why? They stopped listening to their own voters. They stopped listening to the will of the people. They were listening to the globalists. They were listening to the New World Order people, and now they are paying the price for it. All right. Hungary, after their huge election win, has vowed to continue to fight EU mass migration. And Budapest is saying after the country's governing Fidesz party won the victory in the European Parliament elections on Sunday, they ran on a platform of countering the mass migration. Prime Minister Viktor Orban, whose party won a record 52% of the vote, said that the government would do everything it could to represent the will of the Hungarian people, who he said had trusted Fidesz to bring change to Brussels and support a Europe of nations rather than a bureaucrat-run EU superstate. So this is definitely the beginning of the pushback. The outcome of the elections, which saw the left-wing Democratic coalition place second with just 16%, also underlined Hungarians' desire to protect Christian culture and to halt mass migration to the bloc. So the people of Europe have definitely spoken, and the politicians better listen. Now, over in Germany, there were historic losses for Germany's two governing parties. The Green Party had a huge win. They didn't win, but they had a huge surge. And this is putting Angela Merkel's coalition under extreme stress as to whether she can continue. Now, Angela Merkel had said that she was going to step down. Now she's unretiring. She's changed her mind. Basically, last year, Merkel had vowed to step down and hand over leadership of the Christian Democratic Union to Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. But apparently, Merkel has now changed her mind, saying that Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer is simply not up to the job. So it's a little bit of a spark going on over there. Could spark a rerun of last year's leadership campaign to find an alternative candidate. So Merkel is going to stay in power until 2021, despite her promises to the contrary. Over at the EU in Brussels, Jean-Claude Juncker could stay on as the EU chief well into next year after the European election result sparked a bitter battle over who will replace him. And Brussels top civil servant Martin Selmayr suggested the commission boss may need to have his mandate extended with big implications for Britain. So he is not going to step down. Apparently, they're talking about stretching his term in office. Okay. All right. Let's turn to the war zones here. Article out of Al Jazeera. Is the U.S. media beating the drums of war on Iran? Yeah, of course they are. We're all seeing it. Ooh, Iran is bad. Iran is bad. They're terrible people. You should hate them. We have these, hyped up headlines, anonymous sources, unspecified threats. Iran is now back in the news here in the United States of America. And it wouldn't be the first time the U.S. media, wittingly or unwittingly, and I'm going to go with wittingly here, have made the case for war on the basis of vague, anonymously sourced intelligence. In 2003, it was Iraq and Saddam's nuclear weapons. In 2019, it's Iran and their nuclear weapons program, which doesn't actually exist. So, yeah, they're banging the drum out there. Now, the New York Times has come on out with a story accusing Iran of having a nuclear weapons program. But Iran does not have the intent to make nuclear weapons. It has no nuclear weapons program. It never did. The inspectors who went on in, from the United Nations, went on in and said, no, there's no nuclear weapons program here. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Joe in Tennessee, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I see I'm watching Fox News here, and they got Michael Avenatti on.
Yeah.
And it's just an indication of this whole weekend with the European elections, how they're being ignored by our corporate CIA-controlled globalist media. The European elections were stunning. They were basically the Trump effect. Trump sent Bannon over there, and I think he's done very good work organizing the populist nationalists. I have two words: austerity and immigration. That's it. The whole globalist New World Order is being destroyed because of those two pillars: austerity, created by the central bank, and immigration, created by the Satanist cabal that wants to destroy and get rid of white people and white European Christian culture. So I'm just so ecstatic by this. But it is really interesting to watch how the mainstream corporate CIA-controlled globalist media is just totally ignoring the European elections. And part of that is because it's such a great triumph for President Trump. First it was Brexit, then there was Trump's election. Look, Brazil went nationalist populist, Australia's national populist, India just going that. What do they have left for globalism now? Germany, So I just think it's a wonderful time for my side, because I've called before and said I'm a proud white nationalist, and I have and it's just great to see it flowering throughout the world, and hopefully they can do something now about immigration. I don't want the Nazi type way to deal with it, but I do want to see people deported back to their countries of origin. In particular, if they haven't assimilated, and certain religions don't seem to be able to assimilate here in this country. Once again, I just think this is a wonderful time. I think that this is just showing how Trump, with the tapping into national populism, has made a wonderful decision, and he's a great leader for it, because he really, no matter what you say about Trump, he's not a typical Republican that just rolls over. He's a fighter, and that's what we need. I'd like to mention one other thing that Congressman Brad Sherman was on, talking about Bitcoin and what a threat it is to our power as a nation. And I thought that was really interesting to see, a congressman talk about something. A lot of people say Bitcoin's a scam and all that. I don't know if Bitcoin, but I do think that there is a future for cryptocurrency. I think crypto will have a big part to play in the coming years. And just the to see a congressman talk about it, and especially a socialist, globalist, New World Order style Democrat, tells me that the libertarian nationalist populists probably should get on the crypto bandwagon and support it, because it is a threat to the central banks, and the central banks are the enemy. They're
Yes.
a big part of the enemy that we fight, the people behind the wars. As you say, all wars are banker wars. So I think that it's time, although I've always been a big gold and silver man, I think that to see guys like Brad Sherman scared of cryptos, maybe we should get on that side of supporting them as in a libertarian way to take away power from the corrupt central bank.
I would definitely agree. Anyway, Joe, I got to cut you off here and say goodbye. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And again, RBN does need your support. And the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. And of course, you can donate to whatreallyhappened.com over at the website. There's a little button up there on the right-hand side that you can click, and we certainly appreciate all those who've been donating and all those who are going to donate. So getting on back to Iran, Donald Trump, when he was over there in Japan, made the claim the U.S. is not seeking regime change in Iran. And Trump basically came on out and said that they just want to make a deal with Tehran with the same leadership. And I don't know. I think probably Bolton has something to say about that. But it's clear at this point that Trump is not enthusiastic about yet another war, especially against a formidable adversary like Iran. Because yes, ultimately the United States would win. It would be costly. Now, Turkey has launched a cross-border operation into Iraq against the Kurdish militants in a mountainous region in the north of the country. And apparently, Turkey unleashed a barrage of artillery fire and airstrikes yesterday before ground forces entered northern Iraq to demolish the caves and shelters that are being used by terrorist groups and to eliminate the terrorists, which is a reference to the outlawed PKK. No word from Iraq how they feel about this invasion of their sovereign territory. Now, Russia has invited Afghan officials and the Taliban to attend a 2-day meeting in Moscow. And the meeting will mark the 100th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Russia and Afghanistan. So Putin is trying to calm things down there as well. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said a 14-member delegation was heading to Moscow led by Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, the group's top political leader. So maybe Putin is going to be able to calm things down there. Story coming out of Russia today. It recently came on out that the Rand Corporation, which is this well-known think tank, very large, has been working on plans on how to destabilize and bring down Russia. And obviously, Russia's very concerned that we're going back to the old Cold War mindset. And apparently, the latest briefing from Rand, it's 12 pages. It's just cold and calculating creepiness how the United States could lay waste to Russia. And a lot of people are concerned that the U.S. may actually try and implement the plan. A lot of people are concerned that the U.S. could try and implement the plan and stumble, fall down. If you look at how poorly the U.S. has been doing in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq, yeah, we're not ready to go up against Russia. We really, really are not. Okay, apparently Israel carried out a rocket attack in Syria's Golan Heights, and apparently the missile targeted Tel al-Sha'ar in Quneitra, and they blew up a military vehicle. Some people were wounded. Israel's military is confirming the attack in a statement posted on social media, and said that the attack was in retaliation for anti-aircraft fire directed at an Israeli fighter jet earlier yesterday. And it said the projectile missed the jet during a routine flight in Israel, and the plane completed its journey before the Israeli military targeted the launcher that had fired at the jet. So they're starting to shoot at each other over there Story coming on out from Middle East Monitor. The EU should be calling out Israeli colonialism for its violence and incitement. And apparently there's been another big stink over Palestinian school textbooks. There's a report published by Israel's Institute for Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education, claiming the material was more radical than previously published. And the EU has since confirmed it will be funding an assessment to be carried out by an independent and internationally recognized research institute. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page, and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take some phone calls now. Ken in Texas. Aloha, Ken. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy. Hey.
Hey.
Bilderberg, Bilderberg bulls are going to have their party this weekend in Switzerland. I spell Montreux. My French ain't too good. 30 May to 2 June, this coming weekend.
Yep.
I got that off from just good. You know about it. Okay, good. Google Bilderberg and you can find it. And also, I guess Rintz is saying Jared's going to show up.
Okay. Yeah, I would not be surprised at all.
Oh. Anyway, snoop around, you can find it.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. Yeah, Mike, I have a quick question. Don't you think that Thomas Jefferson could have been a little bit hypocritical for saying, I believe he penned the saying, a little bit of revolution won't hurt is a good thing, something like that?
Yes, he said every once in a while, a little revolution is good for the country.
Yeah, but don't you think that was a little bit hypocritical on his part, being that he was a former ambassador, Secretary of State, President, Governor of, I think, of Virginia? Do you think that statement could be a little bit hypocritical on his part?
No, I don't think it's hypocritical. I think, in fact, he was being very realistic because he understood that the daring experiment in self-government that he'd created wasn't going to last, that eventually it would be taken over by politics and corruption. In fact, one of his writings, he actually predicted that there would have to be a revolution to basically tear it all down and start it all over again at some point in the future.
Wow, a very forward-looking man and very brave.
Yes.
All right, Mike, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Tony. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open now. Getting on back to the international news here, a lot of people are still talking about the U.S. deal of the century, Trump's deal of the century for Israel and Palestine. And more the Palestinians are saying, no, it's all one-sided. It gives Israel everything that they want, and it takes away everything the Palestinians have. And they're looking, basically, it's an attempt to buy the Palestinians into giving up their right of return, which was guaranteed to them not only by the United Nations on the creation of Israel, but by the Israeli government itself on the creation of Israel. And now they want to renege on the deal and sort of enforce this apartheid regime that they have. And they figured that if they offer enough money to the Palestinians who've been starved by the cutoff of funding, that the Palestinians will go for it. So a lot of people are saying that this deal of the century is not going to solve the Palestine-Israel conflict. In fact, attempting to implement it is only going to make matters worse. And they're saying that the deal basically is an attempt to blame the victims and saying that whatever misery the Palestinians are suffering from is the result of choosing war against Israel. And apparently Shin Bet, Avi Dichter, former head of Shin Bet, is saying that in 1947, the UN offered Palestine a partition plan, but they refused it and they chose to fight. And as a result, they're now stifled in this tiny piece of land, the Gaza Strip. And according to Avi, they only have themselves to blame for their predicament because they gambled against the Zionist movement and they lost. Well, from their point of view, they may not see that they've lost. They're still fighting. Okay, another article, this one from Middle East Monitor again, and it's saying that resurrecting the PLO is Palestine's best response to the deal of the century. And it's saying that Palestinian groups like Fatah, Hamas, and others should not confine themselves to merely rejecting the deal of the century. They should use their resistance to the new American-Israeli plot as an opportunity to unify their ranks. And yes, I think that could very well happen. So leaked details of the deal of the century confirm the Palestinians' worst fears. The deal is but a complete American acquiescence to the right-wing mentality that has ruled over Israel for a decade. So, according to the leaked details, a demilitarized state of New Palestine will be established on territorial fragments of the West Bank, as all illegal settlements will become part of Israel. And apparently, if Palestinians refuse to accept the deal of the century, they'll be punished through economic and political isolation. Okay. Now, as a result of all of this, PLO and Fatah institutions are saying they may revoke their recognition of Israel. Now, that's always been a big thing for Israel. They want to be recognized for their right to exist, but they won't give back. They won't recognize Palestine's right to exist. And that's been a major cause of the problems, the tensions for all these years. Israel wants to be recognized for their right to exist, but they won't recognize anybody else's right to exist. So Palestine did recognize Israel's right to exist. They got back absolutely nothing for it in terms of recognition of their right to exist. So they may revoke that now. Israel, meanwhile, is dealing with their own internal political crisis. And apparently yesterday, Israel's parliament passed a preliminary motion to dissolve itself. And this pushes the country toward an unprecedented political impasse less than 2 months after elections seem to promise Netanyahu a new mandate. So if the bill receives final passage in a vote that's scheduled for tomorrow, Israel would be forced to hold new elections, sending the entire political system into disarray. Now, Netanyahu appeared to have a clear path to victory in a fourth consecutive term after the April 9th elections. His Likud party emerged tied as the largest party in the 120-seat parliament, and with his traditional allies, he appeared to control a solid 65 to 55 majority. But he struggled to form a government ahead of a looming deadline to do so. His prospective coalition has been thrown into crisis in recent days by former Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, an ally and sometimes rival of Netanyahu. And also, if the parliament dissolves itself tomorrow, that will be the end of the bill to immunize Israeli officials against prosecution while they hold office, which means Netanyahu would be looking once again at those corruption charges. Over at the Al-Aqsa Mosque for the holiday of Ramadan, there is a group of volunteer women who are basically guarding the mosque and trying to keep calm, keep corridors open for transitions, to prevent noise and to ensure safety. They're obviously very concerned of intrusions by the settlers who have been intruding into Al-Aqsa Mosque. And obviously Ramadan presents a ripe target for that kind of thing. So I wish them luck and I wish them peace here. Jonathan Pollard is back in the news after serving 30 years behind bars and more than 3.5 years under severe parole restrictions. Pollard is expressing his increasing frustration with the Israeli government failure to act on his behalf. And he's now saying that, you know, when he was expelled from the embassy in 1985, he felt a sense of betrayal, and it's basically continued. Well, Jonathan, you're dealing with the government of Israel, and while you're useful to them, like when you were sending our nuclear secrets to them, yeah, they're going to be nice to you. They're going to give you money. But once you're no longer useful, what are you expecting? Gratitude? Apparently, he's asking to be repatriated to Israel, and neither the U.S. nor Israel is really very cool with that idea, if you will. Okay, remember 9/11? I'm sure we all do. We all remember where we were when we first heard about 9/11. And apparently, there have been some new documents released by the FBI back on May 7th. And it talks more and more about a possible Israeli role in 9/11. And seems to confirm that the Israeli assets, aka the dancing Israelis who were arrested on that day, did have prior knowledge of what was going to take place. They knew what was going to happen before it happened. And in fact, some of the witnesses to the dancing Israelis had testified. They showed up and set their camera up before the first plane hit the World Trade Towers. Now, the video that the Israelis shot that day is still classified. It's never been shown. And obviously, if it shows the first impact, that is absolute ironclad proof that these Israeli assets, who were known to be Mossad agents, most of them, did know what was going to happen before it happened. So now there is a new lawsuit that is out there demanding more information about these 5 men arrested on 9/11. And they were in this white Chevrolet van. It had markings on it from Urban Moving Systems. And they were arrested after they were seen celebrating the World Trade Center attacks from a parking lot across the Hudson River in New Jersey. And the FBI had alerted local police departments to be on the lookout for the van. And the van was searched by a bomb-sniffing dog, yielding a positive result, a positive indicator for the presence of explosive traces. Samples were taken for testing, but the results of the tests have never been released. The men were held for 71 days. Then they were sent back to Israel without any charges, where they were greeted like heroes and put on TV, where they said their purpose there was to document the event. Now, we live in an age where we understand that we are lied and tricked into wars, whether it's Saddam's nuclear weapons or Assad's sarin gas or 9/11 itself. That's the reality we all have to learn to live with. And yeah, 9/11 was another false flag. It was staged to get us into this century of unending war that was being called for by the Project for the New American Century. So, alrighty, story coming on out from Breaking Defense. The Army is moving out on lasers and hypersonics. It's commentary from Lieutenant General Thurgood, who's saying that these are very cool weapons, but they're not the panacea of all things. And he's saying that, the lasers, they can only hit one target. They can't hit a swarm. The same thing with hypersonics. They're very good to get to a target very quickly, but they're not necessarily good at taking out incoming rockets, artillery, mortar rounds, and small drones. He says the Army should be focusing on electrically powered weapons that cost pennies per shot instead of expensive one-use interceptors. And he says both lasers and microwaves have real limits. And he's absolutely right. If you're going to fight a war, you want a weapon that just costs a few pennies per shot, instead of these very, very expensive one-time only weapons. Now, as you know, Donald Trump spent the weekend in Japan. He had a lot of good meetings. And Trump announced at the end of it that Japan will buy 105 of the F-35 stealth warplanes. And that's basically would give Japan the largest F-35 fleet of any U.S. ally. And I believe he said it was the F-35As, which don't do the vertical takeoff and landing, but take off and land like a conventional plane. So apparently they've been working on this deal since last December with Lockheed Martin. And so Japan is buying the aircraft here. Now, the Army uses a lot of software, and they're rethinking the way that they want to buy that software. Right now, the way they do it is they contract with a software provider, and then that software provider still owns the code. And if the Army needs a change or an upgrade, they have to go back to the contractors. The Army is now thinking about acquiring the IT rights to the software so that it can do its own maintenance and upgrades as it sees fit. And I think that's probably a better way to go at the problem, because what happens if you buy software from a contractor and the contractor goes out of business? Which does happen. It really does happen. So meanwhile, the Army is looking at being able to update all of their software every 2 years to stay equal with adversaries like China and Russia. And so they're going to deliver incremental updates to the tactical network every 2 years, starting in 2021. All right. Turning to our domestic politics here right now, Lindsey Graham is out there saying that the only ones who are against the release of the Russia probe details are those worried about exposure of their own behavior, their own actions. And Trump has granted Attorney General William Barr full authority to declassify all government secrets related to the Russian collusion investigation. This ran for 2 years, involved thousands of documents, scores of individuals, and Trump has said, yeah, it's all going to be out there and in the open. We'll be right back after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective, and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations. A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, In a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here to James in North Carolina. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Just a couple of things I wanted to check with you about regarding the dancing Israelis. I remember looking at something a while back and noticed that one other thing. I don't know if you mentioned it or not. That the owner of that company, the Urban Moving Systems, fled the country the very next day after 9/11.
Yes, he did.
And has not been seen or heard of since.
No, actually, he's back in the United States. He came back, and he's back in business. But he did leave the United States for Israel, and he stayed there for a while. In fact, because part of his business was storage units, the authorities had to come on in with bolt cutters in order to cut the locks off of some of those storage units and let people get their possessions back.
And he was not held for anything,
Nope.
even though he was the owner of the
Nope.
band. No, that's fine. They certainly managed to get away quite slick. They got back to Israel, and he wasn't charged, and the owner wasn't charged with anything. One thing I wanted to find out, I don't know if this was just something apocryphal or if it wasn't there a vehicle of some kind that had a painting or a decal or something of the Twin Towers with the plane crashing into it?
Yeah, I remember seeing a photograph of that, and I don't know that there was any actual connection between that van and 9/11. It was sort of a recurring theme at that time, and a lot of people wondered about that, but I don't know that it really amounted to anything.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was connected with the Israelis or not, if it was one of their vehicles. I imagine I don't think they would have been advertising that. But, well, that's just something I wanted to check with. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
No, nothing else.
All right. Well, thank you, James, for the phone call. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open. Getting on back to our domestic politics here. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said on Sunday, the Trump administration already knows that there was a high level of corruption at the FBI ahead of Attorney General William Barr's investigation into the origins of the Russia investigation. Well, we know there was corruption at the very highest levels of the FBI, going back to the way James Comey just gave Hillary Clinton that get out of jail free card over her felony Title 18 violations. So, yeah, there's a lot of corruption at the FBI and the Department of Justice and the Department of State. And I do wish that Trump would sort of go back to his reality show and dust off his phrase, "You're fired," because there are a lot of people in that government at the highest levels who do need to be fired. Anyway, we're going to take a break now for station identification. We'll be back after these few words.
Don't regret growing old. It's a privilege denied to many. Heart disease is taking our youth from us. Young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are dying needlessly. One of the hardest messages I've ever had to deliver is to convince people that something natural like Extendivite should be taken as a preventative measure. I'm sure you heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Extendivite is that ounce. Take Extendivite for 1 year and see what your doctor has to say and how much better you feel. Herbs take time to address the problem. It took years of life to have a problem. Give Extendivite 1 year to fix the problem. Don't wait until it's too late. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or visit us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Remember Victoria Nuland? She tends to travel around a lot and interfere with other countries' governments. She was involved in Maidan 2014. Turns out she's on a blacklist for visas. She wanted to go to Russia, and they're refusing to grant her a visa. So it looks like her past is catching up with her. I think that's a good thing, actually. Apparently, in Venezuela, Maduro is saying that the United States and their allies are engaging in sabotage against vital fuel shipments and humanitarian aid ships. And apparently, they're saying that vessels that were carrying food were sabotaged and not able to leave the ports that they were going to depart from. So, dirty tricks down there. North Korea is calling John Bolton a warmonger and a defective human product over his comments about the recent tests of short-range missiles. Now, Bolton called the tests a violation of UN Security Council resolutions. That appears to be a little bit of an exaggeration. Trump himself is saying he's not bothered by short-range missile tests. These are missiles that obviously are intended to protect the waters around North Korea. They can't reach Japan. They can't reach the United States of America. Abe, of course, is out there banging the sabers over the tests. But basically, these were the first tests since 2017. And was pretty much symbolic. It's trying to get the U.S. to come on back and re-engage in the talks. Now, North Korea has already indicated it's willing to give up its nuclear weapons. That's not enough for Donald Trump. He wants them to give up their long-range ballistic missiles. Again, he wants total disarmament. And North Korea is not going to do that in an age where we have this aggressive United States invading country after country after country after country. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones here. Stuart in Florida. Aloha, Stuart. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay, how you doing, Mike? I just wanted to respond to Joe from Tennessee. I called in a little while ago. He was talking about Trump, the great nationalist, and, heaped a little bit of praise on him. I would like to make 2 points about that. One, I don't think Trump is the cause of these nationalist type of movement across the Western countries. I think he's more of the symptom of the fear of loss of the Western culture that people are feeling with the immigration invasion.
I think you're
and
correct.
The second point I'd like, and the second point I'd like to make is, I don't know how Joe can talk about the great nationalist Trump. He's going around the world violating it. He's occupying 2 countries, Iraq and Syria. He refuses to leave. He wants to appoint the leader of Venezuela, and he wants Iran to disarm. And basically, he's going around the world telling countries what weapons they can have and what leaders they can have. So, Joe, I wish when you call in next time, you let us know what you're smoking. Your thoughts?
And I hope you brought enough to share.
Exactly, because it sounds like good stuff.
Okay, anything else, Stuart?
One other thing on another. Yeah. One quick point. I live down here in Miami, in the Miami area. I had an interesting conversation with a guy. He was kind of a young guy. He's a Cuban guy. So, of course, I asked him about, did he hear any stories about, from his parents and grandparents about what went on in Cuba during the revolution there. And he says something to me that sounds like it could be quite credible, and I don't know if you've ever heard this. He says he met Felix Rodriguez, the CIA guy, and
yeah.
I think he's from Iran-Contra fame.
Yes.
And he says that Castro had told them where Che Guevara was, and they were surprised. But knowing what I know about Castro from what I've read is Castro he manipulated people a lot. He did that with the Cuban Communist Party when he first came into power. But, Castro, I think, just had a big ego, and he wanted to be the top dog. And there was Che Guevara in South America, grabbing the spotlight and the romantic, exploits of the revolutionary. So I just thought, I don't know if you ever heard that, but it sounds like it could be quite credible.
Yeah, I wouldn't reject that out of hand. I've never heard that before, but I'm not ready to say it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'll let somebody else get on. Thank you, Mike, and always love your show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates just now rejoining our network. Turning back to our domestic politics here, Senate Republicans are publicly dismissive of the threats from House Democrats that they may bring articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, knowing they have all the power in the situation. And this is something we've pointed out before. And maybe this is the reason why Nancy Pelosi isn't moving forward on this. She's trying to tamp it down. The House might be able to impeach Donald Trump, but it's up to the Senate whether to remove him from office, and they're not going to do it. It's still a GOP majority over there. And so it would be the same situation that we had with Bill Clinton, where he got impeached for lying under oath, but he was not removed from his office. Okay, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is back campaigning, advocating for raising the minimum wage for restaurant employees and other tipped workers. Apparently, she's returning to her bartending roots. And you have to look at AOC and her background and wonder just how this person came to be a politician. Because she came out of nowhere. She had this unexpected win. And now she's out there with all this, frankly, nonsensical stuff like the Green New Deal. Is this the best that we can do? All right, looking at the economic news here, the Chinese bond market has been roiled by its first ever bank failure in nearly 30 years. And late Friday, China's financial regulator and central bank basically took control of a bank, the Inner Mongolia-based Baoshan Bank, due to the serious credit risks it poses. And the news highlighted the potential for increased stress at regional lenders that piled into off-book financing in recent years. So the fact that in China banks are now fair game for failure and will soon join the record surge in Chinese corporate defaults. So China's economy is definitely in trouble, and not just from the tariff war. Well, if you really think about it, China's entire economy was based on manufacturing and exporting, and their biggest customer was the United States. But the American people are now broke. And much as we would like to, we can't go down to those big box stores and buy those Chinese products anymore. And China's economy has taken a hit from that. Apparently around the world, it's now estimated there have been 38,000 layoffs in the auto industry. And this hits countries like China, Great Britain, Germany, Canada, and the United States. They've seen at least 38,000 job cuts over the last 6 months in the automotive sector, and this could just be the beginning. Now, Daimler CEO Dieter Zetsche said that sweeping cost reductions are ahead to prepare what he's calling for an unprecedented industry disruption. People just don't have the money to buy cars. I'm sure you've seen all the commercials on TV. They're offering amazing deals, you know, 0 down, 0%. If you actually had money, this would be a wonderful time to buy a car, but nobody has the money to buy the cars. We still have this overflow lot down at the bottom of the hill. It is jam-packed with cars. They cannot move the product. So, alrighty. Now, this is an odd little story. James McDonald, and he is a Rockefeller and Company CEO. He's a prominent advisor to wealthy families. Died in what is, we're being told, is an apparent suicide Sunday. And apparently he was found with a single gunshot wound in his car near a strip mall in Dartmouth. Police are investigating, and they're saying the preliminary investigation says this was a suicide. I don't know. People in that kind of position, they don't really have reasons to commit suicide. So we'll see what's going to happen. Okay, down in Atlanta, they've come up with a really good idea. It's kind of an enlargement about something we talked about a while back, the guerrilla gardening idea, that everybody just get food, crop seeds, and just throw them onto any stray lot that you could, and just let them grow and be available to the homeless and the hungry. Atlanta City Council has just voted to transform over 7 acres of vacant property into the state of Georgia's first food forest. And apparently this was approved with a unanimous vote. And the urban food forest will be available free of charge, will include edible trees, shrubs, and vines, in addition to traditional community garden beds, as well as walking trails, public gathering spaces, and other features. I think that's a very, very good idea. Okay. Well, one of the topics that's still very much up in the air after the EU elections is Brexit. And Tony Blair, former Prime Minister, responded to the victory of Nigel Farage's Brexit party in the elections by predicting Britain will never actually leave the EU, and he is plotting a new proper Remain campaign. So this guy isn't Prime Minister any longer. Why does he still have any control or influence? Is what I want to know here. Now, this is a little bit interesting. There's an organization, We Build the Wall. It's a private company, and they solicited donations through crowdfunding, and they've begun construction on a wall along the southern U.S. border. It's a half-mile stretch that was basically filling a gap in the existing wall. So they're filling that in there. And yeah, I good for them. Good for them. And apparently they're building more wall for less money than any of the contractors approached by the U.S. government. Netflix has announced that it will rethink its investment in Georgia if the heartbeat abortion law goes into effect. Now, Georgia has a domestic film and television industry. That's why all this talk about boycott by Hollywood does carry a certain amount of weight. But now Netflix is saying that they may just not do business in Georgia over the heartbeat abortion law. Netflix, I think, needs to remember their business is providing content to customers, that they are not, in fact, a political power, and that imposing their worldview on everybody else is kind of inappropriate, I think. All right. Now, the heartbeat abortion law, basically, as the name implies, once you can detect a heartbeat, you cannot abort at that point. I think that's a reasonable standard. Getting back on over to France, as if Macron did not have enough problems from the EU elections. As you know, the Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire back in April in a fire sparked by some of the construction equipment that was left up on the roof where they were trying to repair the roof and repair the spire. And the French Senate has approved a bill basically to pay for the restoration of the cathedral. They have dictated within that bill the cathedral must be returned to its last known visual state. In other words, they're saying they want it put back the way it was before. Now, apparently, French President Macron was behind the push to see the cathedral modernized with steel and glass and contemporary architecture. But apparently the Senate said no. The French senators have stipulated the cathedral must be restored exactly how it was before the devastating fire tore through the landmark. I really tend to agree with them. It's one thing to rebuild the cathedral and restore it to how it was before. If you're wanting to go with a daring new architecture, go with a new building. And of course, the French are very, very touchy about anything that is built that is new. Most French people absolutely hated the Eiffel Tower when it was first built. And then when it came time for it to be torn down because it wasn't supposed to be permanent, then the French people had a change of heart and said, no, it's part of our city now, we have to keep it. Same thing with that glass pyramid in front of the Louvre. When it was first built, the Parisians hated it, now they love it. So, anyway. Now here's an interesting little idea. Iceland is considering harnessing the power of their volcanoes to generate geothermal energy. And apparently, they're looking at a plan to literally run a power cable from Iceland all the way over to Great Britain and to sell them electricity. And apparently, people are looking at this and saying it's achievable and it will be commercially viable. So they're getting ready to drill more than 2 kilometers below the Earth's crust into a molten magma lake. Starting this process, they say, could see the Great Britain receiving energy from Iceland's volcanoes within 20 years. Well, please be very, very careful about that. We've had a little bit of interest in geothermal down on the Big Island, one of which sparked an eruption. So, all right, last Friday, President Donald Trump announced plans to nominate Fraternal Order of Police President Chuck Canterbury to head the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. The good news is this guy is a hardcore Second Amendment aficionado. And apparently he has spent 26 years in the Horry County, South Carolina Police Department's Patrol, Criminal, and Training Division. So that'll be good maybe the ATF will kind of soften their stance for law-abiding gun owners. And here is another story along the same line. This is coming out of Madness Hub, but apparently down in North Carolina, this gentleman who's an experienced firearms instructor has started a firearm safety class for children. And so this class is teaching kids firearm safety, kids as young as 6 years old. So it's being run by Michael Pegram, and he said there were no classes to teach firearm safety, so he started his own. And so he just decided to come up with it. And he says it's the parents' choice of what their kids should be around. Apparently, a lot of the training is done with Nerf guns. But children that Pegram feel are responsible enough are allowed to shoot a 22 or 9mm under his supervision. And this is definitely the way to go. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Your arteries. Deteriorating circulation has a number of early warning signs. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, fingers and or toes often go cold, arms and or legs often go to sleep, sharp diagonal crease in the earlobe, short walks cause cramping or pains in legs. Memory is not as good as it used to be, ankles swell late in the day, chest pain after physical exercise or emotional stress. If you experience even one of these symptoms, your circulatory system is crying out for attention. Extendivite is a natural solution to help improve your overall health. Extendivite is not your average heart tonic. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we've been talking for a while about the city of Baltimore, which has for 2 weeks now been struggling with this aggressive cyber attack. And it's now come on out, a key component of the malware that brought the city down was developed by the National Security Agency. And the tool is called Eternal Blue. And apparently it basically got out into the wild. It's been used by hackers in North Korea, Russia, and China to cut a path of destruction and devastation around the world, resulting in billions of dollars in damages. So now it's back here in the United States, wreaking havoc just miles from Washington, D.C. And security experts are saying that attacks using Eternal Blue have soared, and cyber criminals are honing in on vulnerable towns and cities, using it to paralyze the governments. The NSA's connection to the attacks had previously not been reported. One can only wonder why. And the NSA is refusing to comment about it since an unidentified group leaked the weapon online in April of 2017. The NSA and the FBI still don't know whether or not it was leaked by foreign spies or U.S. insiders. I'm going to go with U.S. insiders. But here we have the NSA that is developing these very potent cyber weapons, and they're not taking precautions to keep them locked up. I mean, if you look at the security around nuclear weapons, it's very impressive. Should we not have the same kind of security around these potentially devastating cyber weapons? Or does somebody just, put it on a flash drive and walk out the door? Okay, there is another bug that's going around. This one has to do with the Windows Remote Desktop Protocol. And apparently, nearly 1 million Windows systems are still unpatched and have been found vulnerable to a recently disclosed critical wormable remote code execution 2 weeks after Microsoft released the security patch. Now, if exploited, the vulnerability could allow an attacker to easily cause havoc around the world, much worse than WannaCry and NotPetya, like wormable attacks did in 2017. This one is called Bluekeep, and the vulnerability affects Windows 2003, XP, Windows 7, Windows Server 2008, and 2008 R2 editions, and could spread automatically on unprotected systems. My concern, though, is that every time you patch and update a Windows machine, very often things get worse. We know that some of the patches to deal with some of these predictive execution bugs actually slow your machine down. Some of these patches have actually bricked machines. And it's like we're caught between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, we want our machines to be up to date and to be secure, but on the other hand, we're scared of installing a patch from Microsoft that might cause more harm than good, which has happened quite a bit over the last few years. Okay, over at WhatsApp, they have announced that they will start hosting ads by next year. They announced that at Facebook's marketing conference, and a lot of WhatsApp people are upset because its founder promised that ads would never be allowed. Of course, he's not in control anymore. Facebook is. So yeah, let's put more ads on there. Okay, global smartphone sales slumped by 22 million devices last year. People are sticking with their old handsets rather than buy the expensive new gadgets. Well, they really are expensive. I mean, what's the iPhone XR going for? It's like $1,000. I mean, that's silly. And obviously, if your older iPhone dies, you have to get a new one. But those high-end phones are just really, really too expensive. So sales dropped by 6.6% for the first quarter of 2019 compared to the start of 2018. And comments from consumers are saying, basically, they all look the same. There's really nothing all that new. Each generation of handset, you've got basically marginal gains. They've kind of maxed out the technology, and the newer phones just don't live up to the price hikes. You pay a lot more for the phone. You're not getting a lot more in the phone. For most people, the older phones are just fine. I'm that way myself. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, we're talking about computers. We're talking about the blessings and curses that come with them. Apparently, one of the very first Apple I's just sold at auction for a huge amount of money. And the Apple One, we all remember the Apple II. I even had one of those briefly. The Apple One, these were hand assembled by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. They only made like 200 of them, of which only 80 are known to still be in existence. So back then it was $600 for the Apple One, for which you got the board. That was it. Didn't even come with a case. So somebody had mounted this one in a briefcase, and so yeah, some of those old computers, they're now collectibles. And before you call on in, the VIC-20 is gone. It's been spoken for. Now, Alexa's poor reputation for privacy is about to get worse. Apparently, Amazon has filed for a patent where Alexa will be able to detect when it's being given a command, even if the wake word is said at the end of the sentence instead of at the beginning. And this basically is signaling that Alexa is going to be listening to everything that you say at all times. And a lot of people are concerned, where is that information going? So anyway, Huawei is now considering finding a shipping company other than FedEx to do business with. They're accusing FedEx of basically diverting 2 packages destined for Huawei addresses in Asia to the United States in an attempt to reroute 2 others. So Huawei told Reuters last Friday FedEx diverted 2 packages sent from Japan and addressed to Huawei in China to the United States, and attempted to divert 2 more packages sent from Vietnam to Huawei offices elsewhere in Asia, all without authorization. And apparently they provided images of FedEx tracking records. Well, was it a mistake? Or is FedEx basically grabbing stuff for U.S. intelligence to look at? It's kind of hard to know what's going on. Meanwhile, the big winner in the war on Huawei is going to be Samsung. It's not going to be Apple. It's going to be Samsung. And the fact of the matter is that as Huawei gets shunned around the globe, Samsung is just going to step right on in. And yeah. So bad move. Just didn't work here. Okay. Democratic New Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez suggested the tornado warning that hit the D.C. area last Thursday was part of the climate crisis. And she's previously said humanity only has 12 years left to solve. Oh my goodness, we've got to do it. And Ocasio said the climate crisis is real, y'all. Guess where it casual tornadoes in growing regions of the country. She was fact-checked by meteorologist Ryan Mao, who pointed out that far from proof of a climate crisis, DC's tornado warning was just the weather. And again, you need to understand something very simple. Extreme weather can be caused by upper atmospheric cooling as much as by ground warming. And, we're seeing that. We're just about to, we're just a few days away from beginning our official hurricane season out here in Hawaii. And they're already predicting we're probably going to have a lot more storms this year than we had last year. So we're going to be taking a look at, in fact, it just started raining outside here. But again, if you look at the gas giant planets in the outer solar system, hundreds of degrees below zero, major storms, some of them larger than our entire planet. So it's all about a temperature differential, not just warming. Now, despite all of the fear-mongering about carbon dioxide levels, corporate media has been boxed into a corner where they've had to admit that higher CO2 levels were present on Earth millions of years before humans ever existed. And this came on out because of this new research by the American Geophysical Union, which is claiming that if something isn't done now to reverse this disastrous trend toward planetary CO2 suffocation, total human CO2 emissions could match those of Earth's last major greenhouse warming event, which was during the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum period 56 million years ago. So 56 million years ago, there were no vehicles around to burn fossil fuels. It's just stuff that happens. It's climate. Okay, and again, they're still trying to deal with the flooding. Apparently, they've issued a warning in Oklahoma. There's going to be some flooding there. And yeah, it's a mess there in the Midwest. But one of the major barriers that keeps the Mississippi River on its course may be opened for only the third time in its history. And the opening would be the result of rising river levels and could also flood parts of Louisiana, which would affect businesses in the region. The Army Corps of Engineers may be forced to open the Morganza floodway. This is a lengthy dam-like barrier that redirects 17 million liters of water, that's 600,000 cubic feet of water per second, to take pressure off the Mississippi River. And the river has been at high levels since last October as a result of massive rainfalls that have also had a negative effect on crops in the region. Well, it's not just the massive rainfalls. We had a lot of snow this last winter. And anybody who was paying attention would have looked at the snow and said, we're going to have some serious runoff issues. We'd better make sure that all of our flood control is working and up to date. And they didn't do that. They're not taking care of this country. The government is spending our money on war on everybody else. They're spending it on propping up Wall Street. They're spending it on Israel. They're spending it on trying to tell us which bathrooms we can and cannot use. But they're not taking care of the country. It's a complete failure on their part. It really is. And again, we know floods are going to happen. That's why we build flood control. We know droughts are going to happen. That's why we build water management. And in the past, the United States has built some amazing infrastructure to deal with these extremes. But it's been neglected and it's falling apart. The irrigation system that is what turned the western deserts into farmland is carrying only a small fraction of the volume of water that it carried when it was first built. So there's less and less water getting through to water the crops. So anyway, okay. One of the things that does affect climate, of course, is solar energy. And we know about the solar cycles. And so over at the website Space Weather, they're noting how the sun has been without sunspots for 79 days so far this year. And they're saying that it signals the solar minimum has arrived early. And it will bring with it extreme cold. The solar minimum wasn't expected to start until 2020. So it's arriving now, and it will bring a prolonged cold snap. Okay, let's take a phone call now. Francis in Quebec, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I've just read Vicky Ward's excellent book, Kushner Incorporated, and I hope all your audience get their hands on it and read it. It's quite the incredible story. And Charles Kushner, Jared's father, blew like 1.6 billion on a white elephant of a building at 666 Fifth Avenue in New York City, and
Yep.
it's antiquated, and he can't sell it, and he's got all this. He went way deep into debt to buy it. With Kushner, Jared, in the White House, and he's a 30-year-old idiot who's completely uneducated, and between him and Ivanka, who's also apparently quite the idiot, they've embroiled the whole Trump White House in a catastrophic series of scandals that even borders up on war. And it all involved, who was the Secretary of State, the Exxon oil guy, Tillerson.
Yes.
They even basically drove Tillerson out over this. And what happened is the Kushners were trying to pressure Qatar into bailing them out on their refinancing of 666 Fifth Avenue. And by going around the regular diplomatic channels without the security authorization through private communications with Mohammed bin Salman and MBZ, they arranged for a blockade of Qatar in 2017, I believe it was, and which is an act of war.
Yes.
And they got Trump online, and this all happened at the same time that Trump visited Saudi Arabia. Remember that photograph where him and Al-Sisi and the king of Saudi Arabia all had their hands on that white globe that's glowing, and they look like some weird occult ritual? That's all a photo op that was dreamed up by Jared, right?
Yes.
There's nothing to it. But the point is that they got this blockade on Qatar without even telling Tillerson they were doing it. And they were doing it through private emails and private texting between Jared and Mohammed bin Salman. And of course, every security agency in the world, and probably a lot of private agencies, were spying on this communications. So they arranged for this blockade on Qatar, and then Tillerson saw that the blockade took place and rushed to Trump and says, "What are you doing? Qatar is our ally. We've got one of the biggest bases in the Persian Gulf, a big U.S. Air Force base, one of those $1.5 billion bases, and it's in Qatar. They're our ally. We're blockading our own base." That's how stupid they are.
Yep.
And then apparently Tillerson got into an argument over this with Jared, and Jared said, "Well, that's just what you think." And Tillerson basically, there was like a struggle, and it looks like Jared had Tillerson driven out for wanting to proceed in a proper diplomatic manner. And there's something else here, and you're going to think it veers off into my own insane conspiracy theories. But there's a scandal that's brewing that nobody wants to touch. Like, the only place on the internet that he even talks about it is Rents.com. Rent still has a lot of stuff on the Las Vegas shootout.
Yes.
Now, you've probably seen it. Most of your viewers have seen it. There's a scene in the casino where the shootout took place, and it's while the shootout's going on, and there's a weird-looking multi-uniform SWAT squad that escorts this Middle Eastern guy in shorts and a T-shirt out of the casino. They got their guns up, and they're shouting at everybody to put their hands up. That's Mohammed bin Salman, I think.
Ah, okay.
And apparently, he had the two top floors of that hotel right above where the shooter was apparently shooting. There was we don't know what went on. Maybe sort of like the Kennedy assassination or 9/11, we'll never be able to figure out exactly what went on, but something went on there, and it had to do with Mohammed bin Salman. And when that was over, he went back to Saudi Arabia, and he summoned all the wealthy members of that royal family. And apparently there's 7 different groups of the family. His own group didn't have to come, but the other 6 groups had to come to that meeting. And it was in one of the wealthiest hotels in Saudi Arabia. They were held prisoner there. They were beaten. One of them was killed, and he extorted billions of dollars of their fortunes out of them. and they were all jeered at in the Western press and saying, "Oh, I think even Trump was jeering at one of the guys and saying, "Oh, his money was all ill-gotten anyway." And then right after that, you may not remember this, but there was a long-lost Leonardo da Vinci painting of Jesus Christ as sort of the emperor of the world holding a glass orb, and it was sold for a record price of any painting for $535 million. And it turned out that was Mohammed bin Salman right after he extorted all that money out of his relatives, and he was just blowing his money like a drunken sailor ashore, and he got into a bidding war, the MBZ, but he thought he was actually in a bidding war with Qatar for that painting. But Qatar didn't bid on the painting because their art advisors told them it's not authentic. It's not a real Leonardo. So Mohammed bin Salman got the painting for $535 million. And then when he got it, he didn't know what to do with it because he doesn't give a damn about art. So he offered to trade it with MBZ for his yacht. So basically what it all boils down to is Trump is so ignorant, and with Jared and Ivanka, and they're running him around by the end of his nose.
Yes.
That the whole world is being run by a bunch of like ill-educated lunatics that are prepared to take us to the edge of war over some just crazy, fantastical, just because some New York sleazy real estate speculator wants money for his building. And in the end, he was going around bragging that he had Qatar in his pocket because of his son. And in the end, Qatar, through a Canadian subsidiary, came in and leased his building for something like $2.2 billion, worth way more than it was worth. And it was a 99-year lease, and they paid the entire $2.2 billion up front for 99 years.
Boy, that sounds like some incredible dealings. Anyway, Francis, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Anne, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, SpaceX has started to launch their Starlink internet constellation. This is a series of interconnected satellites designed to deliver high-speed internet to paying customers around the globe directly from space. And they started with the first launch of 60 Starlink satellites. Each one weighs 500 pounds. And they were launched into low Earth orbit. This sets a record for the largest number of satellites in a single launch, 60, and was also a total of 13.6 metric tons, making it the heaviest mission for SpaceX to date. The launch went off without a hitch. And I understand, I haven't seen it myself, but apparently the 60 satellites are still more or less flying in a straight line. They're very slowly starting to move on out to where they're ultimately going to be. But for the moment, for satellite watchers, it's kind of an interesting thing because you see them flying across the sky in formation. And nobody's got a tool to predict where they're going to be, or at least I haven't found one yet. I'd like to. I'd love to be able to see these things up there. Now, not everybody is happy with the Starlink and its huge number of satellites, and there are a lot of complaints coming from astronomers regarding the light pollution that is going to come from so many of these satellites being up there. And this basically means that for an hour and a half after sunset and an hour and a half before dawn, that glints from these satellites that are in a relatively high orbit could in fact interfere with observations. And yes, light pollution is a problem. And we've heard astronauts complaining before about how many satellites are already up there. They were doing the same thing when the GPS constellation went up there because of its tendency to throw these very brilliant flares down toward the ground. But I'm sure they'll adjust. And again, this is going to bring high-speed internet to places around the world where the existing internet is unreliable, like right here in Hawaii with Spectrum. And it's kind of a way to go simply because there isn't enough raw material to wire every single home for high-speed internet, whether you're talking metal cable or even fiber optic. This is definitely going to be a better solution, I think. So as soon as it's available, I'm certainly going to look into it. And, the latency shouldn't be all that bad. But we're definitely going to be looking into that. Okay, we're coming up here on the top of the hour. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we're going to invite you to call on in and share your wisdom with us for hour number 3. So we'll be right back after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we're talking about efforts in space here. Now, apparently, there was this NASA executive hired last April to guide the strategy for returning astronauts to the moon by 2024. He has now resigned after just, 6 weeks. Mark Sarangelo was named a special assistant to NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and he left the agency as NASA abandoned a reorganization plan due to a chilly reception on Capitol Hill. So they're basically saying this guy left because of internal strife and dwindling congressional support for the Lunar Initiative. So apparently lawmakers rejected NASA's proposal to create a separate directorate within the space agency to oversee future lunar missions and ultimately develop human exploration of Mars. Well, I'm a big fan of the space program. I had the great pleasure and honor of being a participant in it all those years ago. But at this point, I have to say, why go back to the moon? We've already been there. And I'm opposed to this idea of a lunar base as some kind of a stepping stone to the outer solar system because of the cost of deorbiting onto the lunar surface and then launching from the lunar surface back into orbit. It's going to take a lot of fuel. To me, it just really doesn't make a lot of sense. The only reason a lunar base makes sense is if there's something on the moon that we can mine that is worth the trouble of bringing it back to Earth. I don't know, maybe rare earth elements. And maybe a return to the moon is justified as a prospecting trip to see, what's there that we could make money on. But other than that, we know that our current International Space Station has a limited lifespan. We should be looking at a new replacement for that. That's going to be your jump-off point to go to the outer planets. So if NASA's looking for a replacement for this guy, I'm available, by the way. I'll even give up that idea about having the ground crews dress up as monkeys when the spacecraft come back to Earth. Over in Russia, apparently their space sector is dealing with a massive amount of corruption. And I remember back when the space race was first getting underway, and everybody involved in it, they were filled with that sense of purpose, national pride, science, getting on out there. These days, unfortunately, it's just another industry, and there are problems. And apparently, Russia's space sector is at the heart of a staggering embezzlement scheme that has dampened ambitions of recovering its Soviet-era greatness. Now, Moscow has tried for years to fix the industry. It's bounced back from its post-Soviet collapse, but apparently there's been a series of and just had a comment from one of our people on the control feed saying, how about astronomical observation from the far side of the moon? That gets the light pollution to go away. Yes, it does. And also you could do radio telescopes on the far side of the moon, get away from the interference from Earth. So that would be two reasons, or a reason to go back to the moon. Anyway, we're talking about the Russian space sector, and they've got these massive corruption scandals at Roscosmos that have basically eclipsed its plans to launch new rockets and lunar stations. They're saying basically billions of rubles are being stolen. And apparently Roscosmos has been under investigation for something like 5 years, and it's not going away. That's a shame to see. That is absolutely a shame to see. Okay. Now, this one, I think, crosses a little bit of a line. Up in Canada, in Ontario, they're considering legislation that would criminalize public displays of faith for Christmas. And the people pushing for this, they're talking about, you know, we're multicultural, we have to have equality, but cultural Marxism inevitably restricts the rights of some to pave the way for the rights of others. And apparently, pardon me, Christians are facing increased adversity in Canada as of late, but the newly proposed legislation would make it a crime to publicly express one's faith during Christmas. It would, under the new proposed legislation, it would be illegal for Christians to make any public displays that are deemed hateful to Muslims, LGBT people, and other victim groups as designated by the left. The bill has been dubbed the Prohibiting Hate Promoting Demonstrations at Queen's Park Act 2019 as part of Canada's anti-hate laws and would give the government complete freedom to ban all things Christian. Now, I wonder if they're going to ban Jewish displays of their faith during Hanukkah, or if they're going to ban Muslim displays of faith. It does seem like Christianity is under attack these days. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Over in Alabama, they have this popular children's cartoon that was being shown on public television. It's called Arthur, and apparently they had an episode that revolved around a same-sex marriage ceremony, and the public TV station basically said, no, we're not going to air this. This was the 22nd season premiere, and it featured the same-sex wedding of Arthur's teacher, Mr. Ratburn, and another male named Patrick. And Alabama's public television station took a great deal of heat for this, a lot of abuse, but they're standing firm on their ground. There are just certain things they don't feel are appropriate to children, and I would agree. I would absolutely agree. Okay, now the Mormon Church has reached financial settlements with 4 Native Americans who were raped while in church foster care program. Mormons who are required to tithe 10% of their income to keep their temple, recommend, deserve to know what their donations are being used for. And I'm mentioning this for all those who think I only pick on the Catholics when it comes to clergy sex abuse. Okay. I guess this is the new trend. Apparently, over in Washington, D.C., in the Congressional Cemetery in Southeast Washington, and this is a more than 2-century-old site whose headstones stand in tribute to some of the district's most notable residents, from John Philip Sousa to Marion Barry. And apparently it is now being used to host goat yoga. And apparently this is an activity that pairs meditative poses with what amounts to basically being, I guess, a petting zoo. Now, the concept originated in 2016 in Oregon at a birthday party, and it just took off from there. It went viral. Goat yoga. It's kind of silly there. Okay. Apparently, all last year, seismic sensors detected strange low-frequency ripples all over the world. And scientists have finally figured out what's going on. There's the birth of a unique submarine volcano near a French island located between Africa and Madagascar. And they're saying that this is what sent the ripples out there, even though they were detecting these low-frequency ripples thousands of kilometers away from the discovered developing volcano. So this baby submarine volcano is situated 50 kilometers away from the tiny French island of Mayotte, and they think it's linked to a series of mysterious earthquakes. This is coming from the National Geographic. Okay, over in Colorado, their Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, has ruled that a sniff by a pot detecting dog requires probable cause and does not justify a search. Now, as you know, Colorado's become very liberal with their laws about marijuana, but apparently there's still an enforcement out there. And there was a concern with people just walking, through a crowd, having the dog sniff at everybody. And the Colorado Supreme Court is saying, no, you can't do that. You have to have probable cause to have the dog do the sniff. Over in Texas, they're getting ready to ban all red light cameras. I'm sure that's going to be good news for all those Texas drivers. And those red light cameras, they're all about generating revenue. They do not, in fact, improve traffic safety. And certainly in terms of the speed cameras, they're not always all that accurate. And part of the problem is that the companies running these cameras get part of the revenue. So they have an incentive to sort of tune them a little, shall we say, tight. But Texas is going to ban all the red light cameras, and so all you Texas drivers, be good now, or they'll come back. Now, a lot of people are concerned about our drinking water. I think it's become an issue ever since the Flint, Michigan crisis occurred. And people want to know that what's coming out of that faucet is actually safe to drink. And more we're discovering that no, that may not be the case. We're looking at industrial runoff that is not removed by the water treatment plants. We're looking at massive amounts of pharmaceuticals going into the sewage system that are not removed by the processing plant. And apparently in areas where the water is being fluoridated, basically what they're using for the fluoride is unprocessed toxic waste. And America is one of very few developed countries that fluoridates its water. Just 5% of the world's population consumes fluoridated water. And more people in America drink it than in all other nations combined. And it is causing harm to our health. And that's because the fluoride chemicals that are placed in our drinking water are actually unprocessed toxic waste products. And it's been that way since the very beginning. And generally, it is pollutants captured from the phosphate fertilizer industry in Florida or chemical imports that come from China, known for a lack of regulation and adulteration. The chemicals aren't purified before they're added to drinking water, and it's not all unusual for them to contain significant amounts of heavy metals like arsenic, mercury, and lead. Now, we're lucky here in Hawaii. They stopped fluoridation back in the 1990s, and we don't have to worry about that. So, anyway, over in Africa, there's serious concern about the Ebola outbreak. Right now, it's running about a 60% mortality rate. They're basically describing it as out of control. They can't get around it. They can't keep people who've been exposed under control. It's a conflict area. People are moving a lot. And even worse, the indigenous population don't trust the medical workers. And apparently villagers in the Democratic Republic of Congo killed a health worker engaged in the fight against a major Ebola outbreak and looted the treatment center. Part of the population of Vusahiro village in the health sector of Mabalako, North Kivu, rose up and attacked the local team fighting back against Ebola. A hygiene agent in the team for the prevention and control of infections died of his injury during the transfer to the hospital. So apparently in a separate incident, the triage center at Valumba in the Butembo health sector was vandalized overnight Saturday to Sunday. That's just going to make things a lot more difficult. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Chris in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Fluoridation, and I can think much more clearly, and a lot more is on my mind now that I'm learned about how to avoid it and how to fight it. You mentioned that the additives being added is not just fluoride, it's the industrial waste and from the phosphate mining, and it says that on the annual water quality analysis for whatever municipality of yours is, but here in Pinellas County, Florida, it says for fluoride that the, quote, likely source of contamination, which it doesn't even claim that it's a nutrient, but says it's a contaminant. Likely source of contamination is, quote unquote, discharge from aluminum and fertilizer factories. Long ago, they stopped using aluminum-based fluoride. Sodium or stannous fluoride, which is the pharmaceutical grade, that still is not ingestible, but it's the second most toxic form of fluoride. There are three forms of fluoride that that vary in toxicity. The only naturally occurring form of fluoride is never used. That's calcium fluoride. Then there's, as I mentioned, the sodium and stannous fluoride from aluminum manufacture, and that's what a lot of municipalities started using originally, and some still do, a few of them do. But it's a lot cheaper to go with the most toxic form and most commonly used. That's silicofluorides, also known as fluorosilicates, that include, as you mentioned, hundreds of toxins, including heavy metals and radioactive isotopes. And you can check that out on the material safety data sheet for your municipality's waterworks. So that's really the elephant in the room, Mike, that you struck on, that it's not just fluoride, it's various fluoride. And it's causing so many different kinds of cancer. And luckily here we were able in Pinellas County to stop it in 2011, but then they reintroduced it in 2013. Contrary, I say luckily, because it was contrary a supermajority. It was the first time we ever had a majority, let alone a supermajority, show up at the county commission meeting opposing it, and yet they still voted it in. They reinstituted it due to two new county commissioners who ran on that platform that they would bring it to a vote. But there's also the fact that it's a crime against humanity and a war crime to deprive a civilian population of a needed resource, and that's contrary the prohibitions of Nuremberg principles, the Helsinki rules, Geneva Conventions, and Hague Conventions. So these are all points that you can bring in front of your city council and county commission, and hopefully they'll start to see that there's a really good reason that we drink bottled water, and I'm sure you on the commission or the council do too, asking for a show of hands. So that's really something that it's industrial waste, and it would be illegal to dump into the water supplies or emit through their smokestacks without the wet scrubbers to somewhat trap or filter the air. But it's completely legal to just add to our water supply under the misnomer, under the pretext of fluoridation. Now, once our county reinstituted, they stopped buying it from Mosaic Phosphate Mining Company as they had been, but then started buying it from China so they could save $70,000 per year. So
okay, well, Chris, thank you for the education here. I'm going to have to let you go, though. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, I don't want to come across like General Jack D. Ripper in Dr. Strangelove, but you need to realize that water is essential to keeping your body healthy. And this idea that maybe the water that is coming out of the taps, or for that matter, even the bottled water, we don't know how good their filters are. Water that comes from a natural spring obviously is preferable, but a lot of the bottled water that's sold at the supermarket is just city water. They run it through some additional filters, and they may add some electrolytes for flavor, but we don't know what's in there either. So we have to be very, very careful. So we're looking at this story. This is coming out of the Daily Mail in Great Britain, and it's talking about how rivers are becoming contaminated with dangerous levels of antibiotics. And they're saying that some of the world's most famous waterways are polluted with up to 300 times the safe limit of common drugs. And researchers found that dangerous levels of the drugs, including those used to treat skin and urinary tract infections throughout the world's waterways, almost 2/3 of rivers across 72 different countries tested positive for 14 commonly used antibiotics. And that, of course, is going to speed the process of the superbugs, pathogens which have evolved to be resistant to antibiotics. What a mess this is. Okay. One of the things that a lot of people talk about is how American food manufacturers are allowed to use additives and chemicals that are banned in pretty much the rest of the world. And this particular article is talking about bread. This is in The Guardian. And it says that in America, a loaf of bread can contain ingredients with industrial applications, additives that appear in things like yoga mats, pesticides, hair straighteners, explosives, and petroleum products. And some of these chemicals are used as optional whiteners, dough conditioners, and rising agents, may be harmful to human health. But hey, as long as it's making money, you know, that's all that really matters here in the United States. Potassium bromate, a potent oxidizer that helps bread rise, has been linked to kidney and thyroid cancer in rodents. And I'm going to see if I can get this next one. Azotocarbonamide, a chemical that forms bubbles in foams and plastics like vinyls, is used to bleach and leaven dough. But when baked, it too has been linked to cancer in lab animals. We live in a country where manufacturers are allowed to sell dangerous and toxic products, and as long as they make money and pay taxes, they're allowed to do that. Okay, let's talk about Mount Everest. Mount Everest has become an adventure tourist destination, and apparently quite a few people have died during this climbing season. And I was looking at the photo of that last run up to the peak, and it was just jam-packed with people. You know, all these people who want to say they got to the top of Everest. And there are all these companies that will take you up there for a fee, and I think it's something like $20,000. But apparently most of the deaths have been attributed to exhaustion and tiredness, exacerbated because a crowded route to and from the summit has led to dangerous delays. Now, seasoned Sherpa have told how there are now more inexperienced climbers than ever scaling the peak. Some do not even know how to put their shoes on, but they're fighting and shoving for selfies as they get to the summit. So it means everyone waiting to scale the final stretch of the mountain is spending more time than they should with limited oxygen supplies at the very top. Now, this is extraordinarily dangerous. because you're in what's called the death zone, which is you're so high in the atmosphere that you can start getting edema, serious edema. You can get cerebral blood clots. You can get problems with your lungs. It's not Disneyland, and it shouldn't be treated like Disneyland. Now, getting to base camp was once on my bucket list, but I have no illusions that I could handle climbing a mountain. I think, the last time I climbed a mountain was like 35, 40 years ago, and it wasn't that big a mountain. Anyway, we got to take another break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s. Along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go to the phone lines now to Jeff in Michigan. Aloha, Jeff. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. How are you doing today?
Doing fine.
Yeah, in regards to this debacle in Nepal, or is that where that was taking place with the assault on summit of Everest?
Yeah, Everest is on the border with Nepal and China.
Yeah, it was like just totally obscene that they would allow that many people to assault the summit of Everest with little hope of surviving that.
Well, the vast majority of them do survive, and they do come on down, and they get bragging rights and selfies to share for the rest of their lives. But I think, yeah, they overcrowded the top, and as a result, it's created an unsafe situation because due to the lack of air pressure, you need to basically get up to that summit and then get back down as fast as you can. Or you start getting into some serious medical issues. And because of the traffic jam up there, they're saying that traffic jam is responsible for some of these deaths of people who are just stuck there way too long, above the death zone.
Yeah, so it's like totally another example of the total corruption of mankind for money.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you because when you look at some of the people who've died, like this American lawyer, he was 62 years old. And I'm sorry, I don't care what kind of shape you're in. What is a 62-year-old doing up on the top of Everest? And I think some of these tour guide companies, they're taking reckless chances with some of these people. They're letting people up on the mountain who shouldn't be there. Again, it's an ugly situation. I mean,
the state of affairs for the state of mankind that they sacrifice people for money is just totally unbelievable. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I mean, in my opinion, if you were going to summit Everest, at the most, you would be like about 35 years of age where you were in your prime.
Yes.
And if you weren't there, then you should be denied the attempt.
I agree. There should be, a doctor right there at base camp looking at all these people and saying, you're okay to climb, you're not okay to climb.
Yeah, but just not even with the doctor's recommendation or authorization based on your age. I would say that there should be a cutoff at that point because, well, you and I both know that you're in your prime at that age, and after that, you're on your way down, and you should not be attempting such a thing.
Absolutely. And, I lay the blame at the vault of these companies that are running these tours up to the top of Everest. They are getting a lot of money for it. And I think they're not exercising enough care and discretion for some of these people to go up there. And again, the vast majority of people make it up there and back, but there have been a few deaths this year. And most of them are on the way back down when they're exhausted and they take a misstep.
Yep, I would agree. And, hopefully sometime people would, come to the conclusion that we need to have, something where we, have this, inclusion that, things aren't possible for everyone.
Yeah. Well, when you get older, you come to realize that. I mean, there's a lot of things I used to do. I know I can't do them anymore. And That's going hand in hand with the realization that I've accumulated a lot of junk over the years that I'm going to have to get rid of before we move. But, you know, it's fun to think about Everest and look at the photos. I remember, I think it was a gentleman from Japan literally skied down Everest. He carried a set of skis up to the peak, and then he basically skied back down that flat flank, and he shot a video of it, which I think may still be on YouTube. That's kind of cool stuff. And you know, there's a lot of bodies up there that have never been brought down. They finally found Robert Mallory's body. It would be nice one day if they find his Sherpa and see if the Sherpa still has the camera, and it would settle the question once and for all: did Mallory die on his way up to the peak, or after he had successfully summited an Everest and he died, as so many do, on the way down?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. I just want to make that point there.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot. And yeah, it's not Disneyland. It's Mount Everest. And it's very, very dangerous. Okay. So getting on back to the news, apparently Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has declared a state of emergency in several Ohio counties. Montgomery, Greene, and Mercer counties, all of which have suffered serious damage following severe weather this week, are covered by the declaration. Emergency state services have already begun providing aid in the afflicted areas, but more long-term assistance may be necessary to help the counties recover. If you are in that part of the country, keep your eyes out the window. Claire and I were talking about this a little while ago about dealing with tornadoes, and Claire was saying, you know, at least you can see the tornado coming. And I said, for at most, you know, 3 to 5 minutes. It's not like a hurricane where you get days and days of warnings and you can prepare for it. Of course, it's better than an earthquake, which hits without any warning whatsoever. So we've been through all of it. We had a tornado here about 4 years ago that touched down just on the street outside our home, and it ripped up a tree. Yes, we get tornadoes here in Hawaii. They're not as big as they are on the mainland, but we get them, and we get water spouts. And yes, we get hurricanes. And yes, we've had at least one big quake since we moved here, along with a volcano eruption. Okay, the latest USDA report signals nightmare scenario for Midwest crops. And they're talking about this historic flooding that has stretched on for months. Many farmers have not been able to plant crops at all, and a lot of the crops that have been planted are deeply struggling. And that means that U.S. agricultural production is going to be way, way down this year, and you all need to be aware of that. And start stocking up now, and just understand the farmers are facing this nightmare scenario. If you have room for it, you might want to think about getting a chest freezer, a deep freezer in your garage, and just load it up. And it's rather amazing that we're seeing zero coverage of this in the corporate media. And they should be warning everybody. Get ready for food shortages, because it's going to happen. Okay. Let's see. Tulsi Gabbard is back in the news. In fact, she was just on Fox News a little while ago, basically saying that, you know, it's time to call out the chicken hawks in both parties. The people who drove us to war for a profit. And she's absolutely correct. War is big business for the war business. And so if you have members of Congress who are heavily invested in the defense contractors, they're going to push for war because it means they themselves make more money. And I know there's supposed to be a presidential blind trust, which we know was abused by Clinton. I think that when we look at the blueprint for the new America, all members of Congress should be the same deal. Their wealth goes into a blind trust so it doesn't influence their decisions. Because they're going to be voting their wallets. Remember back in 2008 when they voted through TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program? They weren't doing that for the American people. They were doing it for their own stock portfolios. Remember that photo of Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them just laughing their heads off? That they'd save their own stock portfolio at taxpayer expense is basically what happened. Okay. Over at Amazon, they're looking to start a purge of small suppliers. Apparently, they feel they've got too many suppliers, and they're looking at maybe trimming back a little bit. And this has a lot of people very, very nervous who are small manufacturers, producers, and they sell primarily through Amazon. Over in Michigan, 200 private schools have closed in the last decade. Apparently, they have an education issue over there as well. And sorry to see it go. Okay. This is kind of an interesting story. Apparently, up in Canada, Microsoft and Facebook are going to intentionally interfere with Canada's election. And apparently both Microsoft and Facebook have agreed to help boost the security of Canada's October election by removing fake accounts and cracking down on bots. Well, that sounds like a good thing to do rather than bad. But apparently last month, the Liberal government of Prime Minister Trudeau complained that the world's major social media companies were not doing enough to help combat potential foreign meddling in the vote, and said that Ottawa might have to regulate them. So, okay. So they're going to get in there as well here. A lot of people are still talking about privacy and cell phone data. And we're hearing that companies like AT&T, Apple, Samsung, they're taking the data that they collect from your phone as you drive around town, as you do, and they're selling it to marketing companies. And we consumers don't have any say over that. So I'm looking at this one article that came out of Government Slave saying that if regulators won't stop the sale of cell phone users' location data, consumers must. And apparently there was an investigation revealed how any cell phone user's real-time location can be obtained for $300. And apparently the pervasiveness of the practice is alarming. All right, we're going to take another phone call here. Brian in Colorado. Aloha, Brian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thank you. Regarding the Colorado Supreme Court case that requires now a higher standard of probable cause before they can break out a drug detection dog. This would be in contradiction to the current federal Supreme Court case, U.S. versus Place, 1983, that allows officers to just routinely break out such a dog on any known drug trafficking corridor, which presumably would be any interstate highway that you pulled over.
Okay.
And I think it's a pretty good thing because I don't think it's right that they can just routinely take a dog out and circle him. One officer said the car is private property, but the air surrounding your car is not. And many of these officers will coach their dogs to signal
Yes,
ahead so they can get
that's
in
been
there.
a big problem, where the dog isn't actually alerting to pod. He's just, you know, the handler is giving him a signal. And then once they have the alert from the dog, then they can move forward with the search of the vehicle.
And you'll see the dog is given a chew toy as a reward for this right on
Yes.
site. But yeah, I would kind of like to see this go. This Colorado case go upstairs to the federal Supreme Court and perhaps enact a new ruling federally, because it's pretty much wherever they want to do this, they can do it, and the courts seem to back them up reliably on U.S. versus Place, 1983, regarding a cocaine charge. I think what may be happening is that they're engineering these very cases years in advance, because they knew that they were going to have a cocaine epidemic, and I think that they knew that they wanted to have the means to bust it, as well as provide this cocaine Iran-Contra scandal and
Yes,
such.
yes. So,
Thank you for having me.
all right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to let you go and switch over to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, good day, Michael. Yeah, I want to talk about what happened with the EU with the Brexit, and I think that's a wake-up call for Europe, because, right now, what's going on with Europe is just a wake-up call. It's what's going to happen. I believe the nationalists are going to take over back to Europe, because the plot that they've been trying to pull in that continent for the last 60 years is disgusting. And so I think that was a great thing to happen with France, England. So we'll see how that plays out with this election coming up. But yeah, Michael, the thing that's really happening is we are totally being invaded here in the United States.
Yes.
We've had cities we have cities now that are totally gone Hispanic. And I don't want to hear they're not lands, they're Hispanic cities. Okay? And so I know this is by design. I see what's going on in Texas. I see what's going on in Arizona. They're trying to flip those states blue, the Democrats. And until, like I told you months ago, until I see Trump arrest these Democrats for aiding and colluding with an illegal invasion of our country, I don't believe anything with our government.
Okay, Tom, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. We got to take a break for commercials, and I'll come right back to you after these few words.
Got it.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program. Today we're talking with Tom in Florida. We're talking about this slow motion invasion, both of Europe and here in the United States. And apparently this is happening, certainly the Democrats like it because all the incoming illegal immigrants are going to vote Democrat. But as the EU elections over the weekend showed, people want to retain their unique cultural identity. They don't want to go in for this multiculturalism and this forced assimilation. It's almost like being attacked by the Borg. You will be assimilated. And people really don't like that. Tom, are you there?
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right. Michael, I would like to ask you, I heard that George Soros is wanted in like 10 or 12 countries. He can't go there. They'll arrest him. Is that true?
I know he's wanted in a few countries. I don't know how many or which ones they are. But that's true of a great many people like Henry Kissinger. There are countries he can't step foot in anymore because he's wanted for war crimes. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know about Kissinger. Well, I know Soros. This guy's one of the big sponsors of the invasion of Europe.
Yes.
I know he's Hungarian. I know the Hungarian government don't want him nowhere around Hungary. So I'm just wondering what's going to happen with this character. I don't know why he don't get arrested by whoever's going to go arrest him, but he needs to be. I don't care how much money he's got. If he's breaking the law, he needs to be arrested. If these governments are saying this guy's a criminal, that's what he is. So,
well, I would agree with you. I mean, here in the United States of America, he's technically in violation of the USA Patriot Act because he's been using his money to fund groups that advocate violence in order to bring about a change in our political structure. And that is defined as an act of terror under the USA Patriot Act. But unfortunately, in the United States, if you have a lot of money, you don't get arrested.
Right. Michael, in France, they have no-go zones with these Muslims in there, and Le Pen won. So we're going to see what she's going to do over the next year or so. I think it's going to be interesting. But I'm telling you, I believe the guy in Italy, Salvini, whatever, I think he's really going to clean the house with Italy. I think he's going to clean their clock out. He's going to deport a lot of people out of there. We'll see what happens. But it's going to be very, very interesting over the next year here or so. And then we'll see what the EU actually does. And I believe Farage is really going to straighten England out, hopefully.
Well, yeah, we still need to get Theresa May out, and she's already vacillating about that. Angela Merkel has unresigned, so the old guard is trying to cling to power. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, she's a Stasi. But anyway, Michael, one more thing. I don't know if you've been talking about this. I haven't really heard. Have you heard about what's going on with Rush today and all the Newsmax and all these other networks are talking OAN? We're talking about Martin Luther King. Have you been following that story?
No, I haven't.
Well, it's been all over the news. It was on there yesterday, and today it was really broke big, where they have these secret tapes of J. Edgar Hoover on King, and it's like, man, this was explosive. I don't know if you had a chance to follow it, but it's getting to the point. Rush was talking about it for like an hour, and Newsmax been talking about Breitbart, Matt Drudge. Drudge is, I think, the one who broke the story. But, man, if this is true about MLK, I think, you know what? We remember they're taking the Confederate statues down in monuments. What's going to happen with his?
I think I actually did catch a part of that story here. And, nobody's perfect. Everybody has a dark side. Anyway, listen, Tom, we're going to have to let you go. It's time to end this show. and get on out of here and do useful things. So stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, share it with everybody that you know, and please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. We really do need the help. So we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.